Thousands are evacuated from the Vietnamese capital as the Red River surges to its highest level in 2 decades, flooding the streets.
There's been some pretty awful weather around the world. It's led to some flooding. Let's update you on what is happening around the world. Hurricane Francine making landfall in the US state of Louisiana. The Category 2 storm knocking out power to more than 100,000 homes and sending life-threatening storm surges along the Gulf Coast. The storm is packing winds of up to 100 miles an hour, but it is expected to weaken as it pushes north towards Mississippi. Francine is the fourth named hurricane of the Atlantic season. At least 30 people are dead and 400,000 people are displaced after a dam in northern Nigeria overflowed, causing widespread flooding. Local reports say the Alau Dam, which is a critical water source in the state capital of Maiduguri, began to overflow amid heavy rainfall last Thursday. Military personnel have been evacuating affected residents. The UN described the flooding as the worst flood in the region in 30 years. And the death toll continues to rise in the aftermath of typhoon Yagi in Hanoi in Vietnam. Estimates are that at least 179 people are dead and 145 more are missing due to torrential flooding and landslides. The National Centre for Hydrometeorological Forecasting said that the Red River was at its highest in 2 decades and that more rain is expected to come in the days ahead.
Now turning to Vietnam, because thousands of people have been evacuated from low-lying areas in the capital, Hanoi, as the Red River surges to its highest level in 2 decades. By Wednesday, floodwaters from the swollen river reached a metre high in parts of the city, forcing some residents to navigate their neighbourhoods by boat. Vietnam is recovering in the aftermath of Typhoon Yagi, which battered the north, killing at least 179 people. Floods and landslides across northern Vietnam have been the main causes of death. So for more on the scale of these floods, I've been speaking to Alexander Vu Vinh, a professor at the Asia Pacific Center for Security Studies in Honolulu, who's from Vietnam.
People talk to me about sort of a super typhoon, and they haven't seen something like this for decades. So, yeah. Also, in terms of the strength of the wind, it's Typhoon Yagi is the strongest in North Vietnam in about 30 years. And in terms of the water level at Hanoi, it's at the highest in 20 years. But many people told about their experience. They haven't seen anything like this in maybe 50 years.
Wow. And how are rescue services managing, and how long do you think it's going to take Vietnam to recover from this?
Well, this is going to be very long. One is that a lot of infrastructure has been damaged. A major bridge over the Red River collapsed, and people are still missing. Nearly 200 people were killed by the typhoon, and 150 people are missing. But now, after typhoon, you're going to get a lot of flooding and also landslides, and people would expect to be living with floods for even weeks. And so I think the long-term impact is very hard to estimate.
And I guess lastly, do you think that the country was prepared enough for this, or how can they prepare better in future if this is going to happen again?
This may have an impact on the people's mind, so that they have to, to think about something like this when they're building new infrastructure, but also in terms of preparing for the future. And the thing is, Vietnam is that most of Vietnamese do not have insurance, and so if you lost something, you lost it. It's not insured, and so for a lot of people, they lost the means that helped them to get the income in the past, and now they have to basically start from scratch.
Now, some breaking news from the United States. A Category 2 hurricane has made landfall in the United States state of Louisiana. I think we can show you some live pictures there now. So forecasters say that Hurricane Francine is bringing winds of more than 150 kilometres per hour. The governor of Louisiana, Jeff Landry, has declared a state of emergency. residents boarding up their businesses and stockpiling emergency supplies. We're also hearing from the National Hurricane Centre, who said that heavy rains and winds were spreading inland across the south of the state. It's a story that we're continuing to monitor. As I say, we're hearing as well that there's life-threatening flooding and storm surge there. Residents having to board up their businesses and stockpile emergency supplies. Francine has had sustained winds in the order of about 100 miles or 155 kilometres an hour. So it's a story that we're continuing to monitor with our correspondents on the ground. There's more information as well on our website.
A year ago, a catastrophic flood devastated Libya's historic port city of Derna. The UN says nearly 6,000 people were killed after 2 dams on the Wadi Derna River broke following heavy rains from Storm Daniel. More than 2,300 people are still missing. The water that surged through Derna in the middle of the night destroyed homes and crucial infrastructure. Mud and rubble still cover parts of the city. Reconstruction efforts are underway, and some displaced families are being drawn back to Derna, attracted by the prospect of compensation and subsidised rent. But political tensions and the distrust of aid agencies have slowed recovery efforts, and the country remains divided between rival administrations nearly 13 years after Colonel Gaddafi was overthrown and killed. Well, some of the people in Derna reflected on their experience of a year ago and spoke about how they are doing now.
I escaped with a group of young people. We saw a really terrifying scene. I thought we were going to look for survivors, but as soon as we looked up, I expected to see buildings, houses, and the mosque we were supposed to be in. I also expected to see my family's house, as it has 3 floors, but I didn't see any of that. Everything has been erased from here.
It is unthinkable that Derna will ever go back to the way it was. Our Derna of old, all the people we lost, the streets, the neighborhoods, the shopkeepers, our friends, our family. All that will never come back. But they say we will have a new Derna. That will probably be true.